This book asks a pretty brutal question. Peter F. Drucker's The Effective Executive isn't a manual about how to just be busier or how to cross more items off a never-ending list. No, it's about exactly where your judgment goes. Drucker wrote this book specifically for people who already work incredibly hard. You don't need more drive. What you need, structurally speaking, is a much stronger load path.
Your calendar may look responsible, yet still hide drift. That is the quiet, visceral threat sitting at the center of this book. You can easily fill absolutely every hour of your day, look incredibly professional, and still entirely avoid the work that actually carries weight. Think about the architecture of a skyscraper for a second. A calendar can look incredibly solid, like a towering frame packed full of steel. But if you walk up close and really examine it, it might entirely lack a true load path holding anything up.
This book tests a defense that most highly skilled people fiercely hold on to. And frankly, it sounds perfectly loyal and adult. It's that little voice saying, well, if I'm needed everywhere, I must be doing my job. This belief usually forms just out of sheer competence. You answer fast because you can. You catch details because you see them. You rescue weak plans because the flaw bothers you. But what is your calendar actually proving? Before long, your talent simply becomes public infrastructure. Everyone builds their day around it, but nobody ever stops to ask what it's costing the overarching structure. Here is the reality slap. Availability is not a service. It is an attention allocation mechanism. It's a system that signals to everyone exactly where your best judgment can be spent. And the stark truth is, if you never intentionally design that mechanism yourself, the absolute loudest demand in the room will automatically design it for you. That is precisely why Drucker starts with time, rather than fluffy goals or grand visions. Time is the load test. It shows exactly what the structure of your work actually trusts. You see, a goal can sound incredibly clean and brave on paper, but your calendar shows the absolute truth. It permanently records who actually has a claim on you. It reveals which meetings win by default and which promises were never truly priced out before they were made.
Now look, I wish this weren't true myself. Your belief in being available isn't foolish. In any serious role, people really do need you. Urgent requests are very real. A late reply can cost trust, and a missed detail can easily break a project entirely. So logically, you learn to stay open. You become the person who absorbs. But here is where the whole thing collapses. The more you absorb, the less your role has any defined shape. And the more your role loses shape, the more people just toss you tiny fragments. Sure, those fragments prove you're needed, but they also keep you from ever placing your full weight on true contribution. So weigh this choice. Do you fiercely barricade and protect the calendar, or do you answer every single door? One path feels inherently selfish to a driven professional, right? The other feels highly responsible. It feels like real leadership. But watch the subtle trap hiding here.
Both of these options actually share the exact same structural flaw. They keep the load strictly on your availability. Neither option asks which work should actually bear the weight. Whether you're locking the door or leaving it wide open, you're still letting access dictate your function, rather than relying on solid architecture. Drucker breaks that entire frame. He doesn't ask how he can do more tasks. He asks, what can I contribute? That single piercing question cuts right through the daily noise. It immediately shifts the focus away from your personal, frantic effort and places it squarely on institutional result. Suddenly, it exposes the uncomfortable fact that some meetings exist purely to reduce collective anxiety, not to build anything structurally sound.
Let's do a quick drop-off check right now. Just mentally scan your schedule. Does your day contain a firmly protected contribution block? Because if there is no protected block, your system has cast a vote. It has voted for drift. That is the exact kind of hard evidence Drucker demands before giving you any further advice. He checks whether your busyness actually has any architecture to it at all.
The method here is severe. It demands that you record exactly where your time goes, not where you hoped it went. Cut the demands that yield absolutely no result. And finally, fuse that freed time into massive blocks. Small scraps of time do not carry executive work. They only carry reaction. A 10-minute gap can clear a Slack message, sure, but large work needs continuous weight. It needs a solid structural beam, not just scattered dust.
This leads to a really critical realization about your own capabilities. The danger in a tower frame isn't always weak material. Sometimes it's actually strength without placement. When you're exceptionally good at handling everything small, people naturally stop asking you for anything large. Your unplaced strength actually invites misuse. This creates a hidden bargain that is surprisingly cruel. You end up trading real contribution for daily approval. You get praise constantly for saving the little pieces, for being highly responsive. But in doing so, you completely lose the chance to carry the main structural beam. A sharp mind sitting in the wrong meeting is just expensive decoration, unless it's firmly placed inside a defined contribution.
This right here is where priority becomes structural work. A priority is not just a preference or a wish list, it is a refusal with reasons. It's declaring that this specific load belongs here, and that other pressure absolutely must not enter the structure. The anchor here is the load-bearing wall. Look, a load-bearing wall isn't valuable because everyone touches it. It's valuable because it carries the right force.
Ask yourself this one defining question. What specific result would genuinely suffer if your best judgment vanished for an entire month? If your answer is vague, then your role is fundamentally vague. But if the answer is sharp, well then your week actually has a real load path.
Now we reach the brutal practice of this book. Effectiveness is a practice. That means you cannot hide inside your talent, your ability to handle pressure, or your natural charisma. Setting boundaries isn't about managing your personal mood for the day. It's about defining exactly what the work must strictly carry. You either build the structural habit or you constantly leak your best attention.
Let's weigh another choice you're often asked to make in your career. Do you meticulously fix your weak spots, or do you just double down on your strengths? One path sounds incredibly humble and self-aware. The other sounds bold and strategic.
But without architecture, both fail completely if contribution stays unnamed. If you don't strictly name the load path, weakness repair just becomes personal vanity, and focusing on your strengths simply becomes a comfortable place to hide. The load path alone decides what actually must be carried.
Directionless work absolutely loves noble language. It calls itself support, or alignment, or responsiveness. You can end your week completely exhausted, but entirely innocent. You can point to the massive volume of emails and meetings as proof. Yet, structurally, the wall took no real load. You burned completely clean energy, but you left no mark.
This brings us to a really stinging truth. A full calendar can actually prove the precise opposite of importance. It can prove that your role has zero architecture. A person can be highly praised for the very habits that keep them completely ineffective, essentially just renting out their best attention by the hour, while the actual overarching structure slowly sags.
Know thy time. Your calendar was never merely a schedule. It is testimony. It is the undeniable physical evidence of what you actually allow to carry weight in your professional life.
The ultimate reality of this book is that your strengths are not gifts until they are placed. Unplaced strength is just service without any real shape. But placed strength, that becomes true contribution. The tower only stands when the load definitively meets the path.
Your life changes the moment you stop asking whether you're needed everywhere and start asking exactly where your judgment truly belongs. At UpGoWise, that is the pivotal turn from mere motion and scattered access to building the true architecture of self. Access your growth map. Effectiveness is chosen contribution.
Before tomorrow, when you open your calendar, label one meeting, contribution, proof, or noise. 300 seconds. Convert one noise block into an outcome, an owner, and a next action. If you refuse, ask yourself, whose building are you actually constructing? Without this step, your calendar remains a weak structure built entirely on drift.